So, Nicki, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into the future, can you tell us a little bit about your own background? Where did you grow up?
Sure. I had such a magical childhood. I was born in Cape Town, and we lived here until I was 7 years old. But my family were all from Zimbabwe, and my dad was specializing in medicine here at Grooteskier. And once he had finished that, we moved back to Zimbabwe. And all my school years were there. And of course, it was a very lovely place to grow up, very home focused, very family focused, and a very beautiful country. So that's where I grew up, and then I moved back to Cape Town to come study here at university. And I've never gone back to Zim to live again. I've just stayed put in Cape Town. I mean, it's just such a beautiful city to live in.
It certainly is. And tell us, Nicki, what was your dream career when you grew up?
From a young age, I knew I loved food and I wanted to be in food. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in food, but I knew that I wanted to have a career that involved something with food. And it was always a bit of a joke in the family, because if there was ever an opportunity to cook, I obviously wanted to do it. And then it wasn't really seen as I'm going to say, suitable career to be anything that wasn't going through university. So I ended up studying nutrition and food science, which was the closest to food that I could get, and then became a teacher.
And I believe you then opened your own cooking school in Cape Town.
I did. Yes, I did. And that was such a lot of fun. At that point in time was before, food was just becoming a thing. People wanted to know how to cook, and it was an interesting time. And before MasterChef, before all those TV shows started, but there was this movement towards becoming what I call a foodie, and people wanted to be able to cook. And I thought, okay, well, here's a great opportunity. I love teaching, and I love inspiring people, and we set up a cooking school here in Cape Town, and that actually we ran for 4 years. During that time, it was the most fun actually that I ever had, because I suppose working for oneself is just a lovely journey. But it was during that time that a lot of the Woolworths people were coming to the cooking school and started talking to me about a career in retail. So that was what really kicked that connection off and got me started to think about retail.
And then, Nicki, you joined Woolworths, and I believe you've been with Woolies for 16 years. Can you share a couple of highlights from your Woolies career?
Yeah, it was a difficult decision, because it meant obviously closing the cooking school. But they made me a few offers, and the one that I took, I just couldn't resist, because it was a combination of everything that I loved. And it was launching the kiddies range for Woolworths, the diet range, which was at that point called Slimmer's Choice, and then launching organic food. And it was really at a time when people started being very aware of the importance of health and of feeding your children healthy products. So for me at that time, it was almost on the cusp of change within Woolworths, that they were really driving innovation across the business. So it was from all areas of food, developing products that would actually talk to the customer's need. And those 3 years when I first started off at Woolworths, first launching the kids range, then the Slimmer's Choice, and then working on organic food, was just the most wonderful launch into retail. And I think there's this thing that happens with a person when you find your zone. I almost think you become like a panther. You've just got so much energy, you can charge, you can go for it and really make it happen. And that was just such an exciting time. But in my career at Woolworths, I had so many wonderful experiences. I mean, I feel incredibly lucky that I had the chance to work in that organization. I would say the highlight of my years there was just this absolute sense of excellence that that brand carries, and knowing that we were developing products that were going to be excellent for customers. So that expectation, that high level of standard, really was what drove us all to constantly be improving. So those years across multiple categories, I just got such broad experience and worked with incredible people, and always with product, because that is what, you know, keeps the innovation channel going at Woolworths. So it was just amazing, an amazing career there.
And tell us, Nicki, you then joined Pick n Pay, and you started up the innovation unit, I believe.
Yeah, so my transition from Woolies to Pick n Pay took a long time. I needed to think very hard about it. But what was so exciting at the time is when Pick n Pay approached me, they asked me what would, you know, get me to leave Woolworths. And the thing that really resonated for me was just this amazing opportunity, because at Pick n Pay at the time, and I'm now talking almost 5 years ago, there was no ready meals category. It didn't exist. There was not really an entrenched understanding of what a great product can do for a customer. And there wasn't that sort of strategic lens on how to take forward product development. And so what they said to me is, they said, okay, so you can be within this corporate structure, you can be an entrepreneur. And I think, you know, Raymond Ackerman's legacy at Pick n Pay is he was an entrepreneur at heart, and he's allowed that sense of entrepreneurship to be a part of the culture of the organization. So they said to me, okay, you've got a blank page. They gave me some financial targets. Obviously, they must always be the bottom line net profit growth. And they said, you know, go for it. So it was initially, I had no idea how little was in place in Pick n Pay in comparison to Woolworths. It was very different, but just this great opportunity to start meeting some suppliers, to set up a team of people, to work with that team of people to launch a category, and then to grow that category and see it roll out into stores. And that was a very exciting time as well. I had never worked so hard, so many hours. I think it's, you know, it's very different when you are starting something in a corporate. But it did prove to be very, very successful. And what was amazing is we then launched Pick n Pay on the map, and we had this Sunday Times started this competition, and with that competition, we won quite a number of awards for products. And so that was in itself some credibility that came with the role and with the category, as well as, of course, the customers. You know, they were buying into it, they were shopping it, they were giving us great feedback about the products. So it felt as if the mission met the vision, and the vision was then to deliver this great range and product offer, and then the customers bought into it, and we got the growth out of it. And from that, there was a momentum that came about. So from that, then the conversation started to happen around, okay, there's a role for innovation in this business, and what does that role look like? And that I was fortunate enough to get that role.
And Nicki, going back to your early days, can you tell us who inspired you?
So my dad really was my main inspiration. You know, he was a war orphan. He was sent out from the UK as a very, very young child with his siblings into an orphanage. And he had a very, very tough time. But he had this dream to be a doctor. And in the orphanage school, they all had to go and learn a trade, nothing wrong with that. But he wanted so badly to be a doctor. And in actual fact, he he hitchhiked, he went to see the Minister of Education. He was such an ambitious, driven man, and he won the Rhodes Scholarship to actually study medicine. And he always had this desire to serve. And for me, watching him and the role that he played in so many people's lives as this doctor and healer was my inspiration to also always reach for the stars, and to, to have this role model as a parent who was so driven was for me a phenomenal, it was really, he was my role model.
And Nicki, looking back over your career, would you say there was a major turning point? Where things,
definitely. Yeah. No, for me, the turning point was when I got into retail. And, I had always loved my career, and I always have. I mean, I can look back over my years of teaching, my cooking school, all of those were wonderful years. I've got no time that I would say is bad, but the fit into retail and the excitement of the opportunity, and then getting into the innovation space, that was when I realized, okay, great, this is me, this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And that ignited the real passion for what I do. Yeah.
And what would you say, Nicki, what is driving you today?
So I still feel that what I'm being driven by is just this opportunity in South Africa. Now, where we are is obviously a very difficult time, but from an innovation point of view, there has been so much focus in this market on top end. So, people that have the money, they can go to Woolies, or they can come to Pick n Pay, or even Checkers, and buy products that are very good, but they are expensive. What is driving me today is to innovate products in the budget customer space. We are a nation of people that have a huge percentage of unemployment. People are extremely, extremely cash strapped, and food is very, very expensive. So what I'm trying to do is focus actually on that core and budget customer to find innovative solutions to meet their needs, and to launch products that are actually going to change their lives. So that is, for me, with the teams, a massive focus. Now, the problem is there is a lot more challenge in developing in that space. It's far easier to go and make a fantastic lasagna than to look at how we can use maize meal with a gravy and potentially enrich it into a lunchbox type of a format that a customer can buy 5 for the week, and it's shelf stable, and we know that it will meet nutritional needs. That is much more complex development and hasn't really been done as much in this country. So that's where I'm focusing, and I'm driven to really deliver those kind of offers. I think it will make the world of South African nutrition and customer just, shop at Pick n Pay, choose Pick n Pay to shop.
Right. Now, looking into the future, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
So I think we are at such a time of change at the moment. There's a real crossroads happening, and I think many people are looking. They've had the time to spend alone and with their families, and I think there's been a shift. For me, in my reflections, when I think about leadership, the key driver for me is authenticity. Living your truth. I think as a leader, it's when teams and people see you as really authentic and saying what you do and doing what you say day in, day out consistently, that authenticity really resonates with people. So for me, there's a big focus on allowing oneself to be authentic, because I think particularly in the corporate environment, it's not always that easy to be authentically yourself. But I definitely know as a leader, when you get such a different result out of people because they can see your heart. So for me, it's not about ego. I think that those days of ego are gone. People don't want to be driven by leaders that are focused on their own ego. It's about lifting up others. It's about making sure that you are listening more and telling less. And it's finding a way to feel engaged, even though we are all so far apart from one another. And for me, that's the future of leadership. So it's not one thing, it's a multitude of things, but it's being able to be authentic. That is the bottom line.
And Nicki, what is it that you've learned from your own leadership journey that you would consider most important for building future leaders?
So, you know, the one thing that I keep talking to young people about is you've got to earn your credibility. Those stripes that you wear on your shoulders, you earn those stripes. But once you've got that credibility, no one can take that away from you. And you can stand very sure in your own credibility. So I feel very strongly that you need to know in your early years of your career, it's about putting your head down, it's about delivering what needs to be delivered, and it's about making sure that you earn those stripes in a way that is true to yourself. Because once you've got that credibility and you've earned it, no one can take that away from you. And there's a certain confidence that comes from that. So I suppose that's what I would try and encourage young people to do.
And Nicki, when it comes to social media, what is it you tell aspiring leaders? How should they navigate social media to build their own leadership brands?
Yeah, there's a bit of complexity around social media, and there's different thinking. You know, for me, from a professional platform, of course, LinkedIn is the way to be working. But I think the thing about social media is you need to navigate the space between personal life and leadership and your professional life. And there's two very different platforms. In the personal space, if you are wanting to resonate with the broader community and talk about your abilities, I think that's great. You just need to do it in a way that's extremely authentic and that you don't mind a lot of people having exposure to it. I look at these influencers and I look at the messages that they land, and many of them are very, very genuine. So I think that there is an aspirational element that comes out of that, because you get a lens into people's worlds that's very different. But for me, I think that social media, you need to be extremely aware of every single thing that you put out there. And when you put it out there, you know it's there forever. So don't post things unless you really feel it's the right thing to do.
Now, Nicki, as an innovator, how has COVID impacted your business and your industry?
Wow. How has it not?
Yeah.
I think so if I talk to where we were, and I'm going to paint a few pictures because I think there's a few different scenarios. In my role with innovation, the key thing and the most important thing is to have a future view of what's happening in the world, and taking that future view, understanding what's driving those trends that happen, and then interpreting those and impacting that into a product offer, strategy first, and then a product offer that lands for the customers. Now, with innovation, it's critical that one is far enough ahead that you're going to make sure you meet the customer's needs, but not too far that you're not ahead of yourself so that the customers don't even want to buy the products. In our COVID world, trends have sped up so quickly. So the things that we knew were going to be coming have actually sped up. But to innovate in this space is a very complex thing to do, because people are just focusing on core business. So there's a shift in the business, and the shift has been, let's cut back, let's consolidate, let's make sure that we have key lines on the counter. And at the same time, if there are big innovation trends that are happening, offer a range that is very, very small, but meets basic customer needs. So on the one hand, I've got this enormous escalation of trends and time speeding up. And on the other hand, we're caught in this business cycle where we're having to cut back and be rationalized and be focused on core business. And it's quite a complex space to navigate, because I do believe that people still want new things. People want new products. That we can't stop offering new products just because there's a pandemic. Life's got to go on. So it's trying to land the right newness at the right time so that we keep some interest, but that we definitely don't want to take too much risk. So I hope that answers the question. It's a complex situation.
It certainly is. And what lessons have you learned from dealing with this crisis?
So, I've learned that one has to be nimble. We have to be able to adapt. We've got to be mindful of whether you're on the right path or not. You've got to be prepared to change. I use the word reset. This is a time to reset. So from a personal point of view, I think a lot of people are resetting. From a customer point of view, we're seeing that shopping patterns have changed and shifted dramatically. And certainly from a strategic point of view, we've seen that we've had to adapt. So it's being able to be nimble, to make those adaptations, to be mindful that what you've got to do is the right thing for customers, and then looking for connections. So finding ways to engage, that has been quite a challenge. And I think I've learned how to engage on a totally different platform, but still getting the kind of energy out of the teams, which is much easier to do when you're all together. And then I am really looking for gaps. So I think for me, what am I doing? I'm dealing with the crisis by looking for gaps. I'm keep my eye on what's happening globally all the time so that we're able to fill those gaps and start getting a pipeline going to launch new products.
So Nicki, when you speak to future leaders in these times, what is your advice? What does it take to succeed in this new economy?
So there's been a huge shift, which I love, into local products. Customers are wanting local products. And I think that there's an opportunity to look in this new economy, how you can be meeting customers' needs, particularly on the online platform, with beautiful local products. Now, it's a difficult thing to launch into online. And I think that my advice for future leaders is to be saying, look for those gaps and then find a community so that you can build a community and sustain each other through this time, but offer products that are going to appeal to people that are looking for solutions at the moment in this new economy, which is very much a local-based platform. So I guess it's a challenging time. I still believe it's worth investing in the big trends that are happening, and I'm very happy to talk to those trends should you want me to chat to them at any stage. Or if people want to make contact with me, I'd be happy to just point them in the direction. But I still believe there's always room for amazing products at the right price, in a format that's going to appeal to customers. And so keep your eye on the ball, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity.
And Nicki, since you're mentioning trends, can you maybe touch on what are the biggest trends in your industry? Maybe
sure. So, where we are, there's this massive global health trend, which has been escalated. It's been a big part for the last even 10, 15 years of retail, but we're seeing health now with COVID has literally exploded. And in that space, immunity and immunity boosting products. That is one of the big trends that we're seeing. Because of the awareness of sustainability and because of how important it is to have transparency with products, there's been a great shift for people into a more plant-based diet. So we are seeing what we call a sort of flexitarian emerging, people eating less meat and being more conscious of the impact of farming, both dairy and animal farming on the environment. And so plant-based is definitely one of the big trends that we see. Funny enough, there's been a huge explosion in frozen and frozen solutions. And that has been quite exciting for us because I think frozen is what we're calling the new fresh. So we're seeing a lot of scope in that. And then definitely online. So this omni-channel that I spoke to just now, getting products into people's homes, into their computers so that they're able to order them and get them delivered. So those are a few of them. Of course, there's more, but that's sort of top level on my mind at the moment.
And Nicki, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
Sure. I feel that being a mentor is an absolute key part of being a leader. And so I always make sure that I have one person that I'm mentoring at a time. And one of the stories that came to mind, and it's actually for me quite a special story because this girl approached me and I was actually her teacher when I was teaching. So I was very young when I was teaching. I was only 21. She was in standard 6. And, I taught her for 2 years and then she left that school. But I remembered her and she was working for one of our partners as part of the Pick and Pay, but not for Pick and Pay. And she came and saw me and I instantly recognized her. And she said she was in a very bad situation at work and she wondered if I would be prepared to mentor her. And I think some of the key advice really in her turning around was understanding as a person what makes one really happy. So that takes some time sometimes because we think, okay, I'm going to be happy if I go to the shops or if I climb the mountain or if I, spend more time with my family. But what truly is it that's going to fire up your engine? And that's the first thing is I always say, go and think about what's going to really excite you, what's going to make you happy. And then what is it that's causing your pain? So what are your pain points at the moment that are so difficult that you can't really get out of them? And I actually recommend that people write things down, and it doesn't have to be in any ordered, structured way. Just put it down on your thoughts down in a daily time that you set aside. It doesn't need to be a long time. Some time to breathe deeply and some time to actually just write your thoughts down and to reflect. And her big thing was that she worked out, she was broken. She had a boss who was a bully. She didn't know how to stand up to him. She didn't know how to be able to own her power in that space. So we spent some time working on those, patterns of behavior that one can look at. But she decided the thing that would make her most happy was to have a 4-day week. She wanted 1 day a week where she could fetch her children from school, her young children, and spend the afternoon with them, take them to school in the morning. And so we worked towards that. Now, I'd never managed to achieve that myself. I think every one of us probably would love a 4-day week, but she managed to achieve it. She actually left the company. She got a different job. She left the bully boss behind. And yeah, she's on her 4-day week. She got promoted. She's got a little side hustle on the go. And I always encourage a side hustle on the go because I think it's great to not put all your eggs in one basket. So that's my story of her, and I love seeing her. Every time I see her, she's got a real sparkle in her eyes now, so that's great.
And Nicki, who are the role models of leadership that you've come across in your journey, maybe in your career or in your learning journey, that you would recommend future leaders should study and learn from?
So there's not many, and so I must be honest. I do always think we've got to understand that people are just people, and they always have strengths and they always have weaknesses. But the ones that I particularly aspire and look to, I don't know how many people have read Michelle Obama's book, which is called The Coming. She speaks of, Michelle Obama, if you look at her influence in the States, she created this health movement, which was called Let's Move, and really changed the whole culture of, people sitting on the couch watching TV and eating and whatever. She is an amazing woman. She had the back of Barack, and she has always held her head so high in very difficult situations. She has a huge sense of dignity. So she is one woman that I look to and I find very inspirational. I'm lucky here at Pick and Pay because Suzanne Ackerman-Berman is, for me, the most incredible leader. She looks after our SME program here at Pick and Pay, and the stories that come from the fact that she has identified people and grown their businesses is just incredible. She also is such a grounded person. She cries easily, she laughs easily. She's a very inspirational woman. So I feel that she is also, for me, a role model. And then a coach called Dr. Henry Cloud, and I don't know if anyone is familiar with him, but he has published a few books. One of the books that I've gone back to in my life on a number of occasions is called Necessary Endings, and he speaks about why it's important to know when a chapter is coming to an end and how to be able to adapt to that change, because I think change is not always easy. So for me, those are three that I would recommend if there were people that were wanting to study. Even just to read, it's not as if you have to study hard. It can just be part of your evening before you go to sleep or whatever the time allows for. I would say those are them.
Thank you. And how can our listeners connect with you, and where should they follow you?
LinkedIn is perfect. There's definitely my site on LinkedIn. I do also contribute to a magazine called Brains, which is an online portal. So there's articles there. I think that's probably it at this point in time. Of course, I actually am very good on email. So if people want to send me emails and to engage that way, I'm very comfortable to do that. And probably through the LinkedIn channel, that would be the most accessible way to do that.
And Nicki, last but not least, is there one piece of advice that you would really like to convey to future leaders that they should implement in their own leadership?
So it's difficult to say one, but the one thing that I do that helps me is to take a bird's eye view. So that feeling, I look up at the sky, I try and feel like a bird, like an eagle actually, sort of soaring, and get oneself out of the daily drum that happens when just in the process of going through meetings and so on. So it's to get up and take a bird's eye view and look down on what's happening. And you get a very different perspective because somehow you're not in the moment, you're above the moment, and it enables you to see things slightly differently. It's quite an empowering feeling. So for me, taking a bird's eye view when things are difficult, I always look up and I try and do that. Even in one's daily leadership journey, just to actually take the time to breathe and then look up at the sky and feel that feeling of being like an eagle and trying to get that view. I think it's absolutely critical to find something that satisfies your soul. So, a lot of what we do is just part of the process of life. So going through meetings, through some work that needs to happen, but finding things that really make your soul sing, it enables you to feel a different kind of power. And I think that's important. I always say ask questions, whatever questions you feel you can ask, do that, because asking questions is a very powerful way to watch people and to see how they think. And you can always learn from that. And for me, just remembering your purpose, the why you're doing what you're doing, that's also really important. So keep reminding yourself. I have a personal mantra. I repeat that to myself when I'm struggling sometimes. And that's something that helps, I think, just to remind yourself of why. Yeah, so that would be my advice, Nick.
Nicki, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership, and reminding us that it's opportunity that arises out of every crisis, and that future leaders should be looking for the gaps that are arising every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I hope I'll hear from some of them. If there's anything that I can help with, I'm here.
Thank you.